video, I'm going to be showing you a strategy we use for comparing fractions. So, just as a reminder, fractions are when a whole is divided into equal parts or partitioned into equal parts. And when we look at a fraction, we have numerators and denominators. So the top number is always the numerator, and that tells us how many pieces we're counting or focusing on, or how many pieces were taken away. And then the bottom number is our denominator, and that's always telling us how many total pieces were in the whole, whether they were a certain color or not, or whether those were the ones that were taken away or eaten or whatever it is. That's the total number that were divided into that shape. So now I'm going to show you a strategy we use for comparing, figuring out which fraction is greater than or less than. So let's start with this here. These are called unit fractions, and unit fractions are when the numerator is 1 and it's just one single unit in the fraction. So if I have something that's divided into fourths, each one is 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, 1/4. So it's a unit fraction, the name of each unit in the whole. And then 1/8, each part of the whole is considered 1/8. And there are 8 of them because we partitioned our whole into 8s. So now let's compare these. So I can think about what I notice, and then I can also show a visual. So first of all, when I look here and I see, well, this here, this whole was divided into 4 parts. This whole was divided into 8 parts. And both of them, I'm just looking at one of the 4 parts, one of the 8 parts. And what I know about fractions is the more parts that I try to put into a whole, the smaller they get, because I have to fit more equal pieces. So that's one idea of how I know 1/4 is greater than 1/8. Because if I take a whole and I only break it into 4 pieces, that's not so bad. But if I have to break it into 8 pieces, they're all going to get really small. My visual for showing that 1/4 is greater is I'm going to take my whole and I'm going to divide it into fourths, noticing they're all as equal as I can get them, and then I'm going to shade one of the fourths in. So this shows 1/4. Now I'm going to make another whole, and it's important that this whole is the same size. And this time I'm going to make 8ths. So I'm going to make my fourths, and then I'm going to use that to carefully make 8ths. And I'm going to shade in 1/8. So here I can see in my visual that 1/4 is greater than 1/8. And again, you can also see here that when I make 4 pieces, the pieces aren't so small. But the more pieces I have to make into that whole, the smaller they get. So that's another idea I can use for unit fractions.
All buses and daycare vans have been dismissed.
So now I'm going to use the same idea when I move over to this one. I want to compare 2/6 and 5/6. So first I'm going to draw my whole, and I'm going to divide it into 6ths. And the easiest way to do that is to do thirds first and then break them up. Did the best I could to make equal 6ths, and I'm going to shade in 2 of them. So here's my 2/6. Now I'm going to take that same size whole, divide it into 6 again. So I'm going to make my thirds, and this time I'm going to shade 5 of them in. So I can see in my visual here that 5/6 is greater than 2/6, and I can also use what I know about numerators and denominators to help me. So here, I noticed that the denominators are the same. So that means this whole was divided into 6ths, and this whole was divided into 6ths. That means all the parts in this whole and all the parts in this whole are the same size. So now I just need to think, what would be more, 2 of the 6 pieces or 5 of the 6 pieces? So since it's the same denominator, I can really focus on the numerators because the same size pieces were in each of these. 6 pieces here, 6 pieces here. 2 of the 6 pieces or 5 of the 6 pieces. 5 of the 6 pieces is greater. All right, now let's do this last example. 2/6, 2/3. So here I'm going to draw my visual for this one. I need to divide it into 6 equal pieces, so I'm going to make my thirds and then use that to help me with 6ths. And I'm going to shade in 2 of the 6 pieces. And now I'm going to make my other whole. Again, it needs to be the same size whole. And I'm going to divide it into thirds. And I'm going to shade in 2 of the thirds. Now I can see in my visual here that 2/3 is greater than 2/6. But I can also use what I know about numerators and denominators. So the denominators are different, and what that tells me is when I made 6, those pieces are smaller than when I'm making thirds. So the pieces in this whole are smaller than the pieces in this whole. So, but the numerators are the same. So what would be greater? 2 really small pieces, because the pieces in 6 are really small, or 2 kind of medium pieces? So 2 medium pieces would be more than 2 really small pieces. I'm getting the same number of pieces, but these are a lot smaller than these. So I've used visuals to help me, and I've also used what I know about numerators and denominators to help me explain while I'm comparing fractions. So use this for your homework and when you're practicing comparing fractions.